Well, hello again, everybody. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by 101 CBD, because when you're looking for full spectrum of raw CBD oil products, they've got you covered. Now, they have the Boost Tincture Blend, which is going to help with overall energy and mental sharpness. They also have the Chill X Blend, which is going to help with the relaxation and improve the quality of sleep that we get at night. And they also have the Alleviate X, which helps with inflammation and pain relief. And all of these tinctures come in their award-winning blueberry flavor. Now, I also want to tell you about their Raw Relief Topical, which now comes in a roll-on applicator, which means you can apply it directly on those sore joints and muscles. And right now, you can get the travel size roll-on for just $7 when you sign up for the CBD monthly subscription of the roll-on. So go over to 101cbd.org, order yourself some raw CBD oil today. And don't forget to use coupon code IMGS25 to get 25% off of that order. Now I want to talk a little bit about Green Code digital marketing. Because if you have a cannabis brand or business, you know your digital presence is an important part of marketing today. And if you're doing it yourself, it takes a lot of time away from you focusing on your business. That's why you need to talk to the professionals at Green Code Digital Marketing, because they can help optimize your website and digital presence for the highest visibility. So go over to greencode.website to see how they can help you build your brand. Okay, now let's start the show. Welcome back, mis amigos. This is the In My Grow Show, the podcast dedicated to taking the mystery out of cannabis. I'm your host, Alex. And I want to thank you once again for taking the time to listen to me. I truly do appreciate it. Now, a little later, I'm going to play a conversation that I had again with my buddy Derek Gilman. He was nice enough to take some time again and talk to me. But before that, let's do the rest of the show. So it is the middle of February, and which means, you know, the first day of spring is like a month away. I think the first day of spring is March 21st or 22nd. And when it gets this close to spring, you know, my mind starts to go towards the upcoming growing season, the outdoor season. So one of the things that I'm doing to get ready is to do a soil structure test on the soil that I plan on using this year in my personal grow. Now, I did a test on the manure that I'm going to be using this year. I'm going to be using a already composted steer manure. Since it's already bagged and pre-composted, I don't have to worry about it getting too hot. I mean, there is still a little bit of like plant material in there, organic material they call it, but not enough to really make it hot that it's going to mess with any of the plants or mess with any of the roots. Because when manure is breaking down, most manures except for like rabbit manure, I think, but most manures, as they break down, that nitrogen breaks down really quickly and it gets really hot. And that heat could burn your roots, could burn any roots, even young roots and seedlings. But anyways, I picked up this bagged steer manure that I got at the nursery. I think it's just called Superior brand. It's nothing special. It's just, you know, composted steer manure. I tested that. And what I'm testing for in the soil is I want a kind of a loamy soil, which has about 40% sand, 40% silt, and 20% clay. That's my goal, is to get the soil to close to that ratio, if not exactly. And I'm going to lean really heavily on that steer manure to help me rebuild my soils, because I reuse my soil every year. I don't throw it out. That seems ridiculous to me. I just re-amend it, recondition it. So since I am going to use so much of that steer manure this year, I wanted to see just I just wanted to see what the makeup is of it. And the way I tested it was the way that Spencer from Craft Buds explained to do it, with a mason jar with water, and you just fill the mason jar first with about halfway the soil that you're going to use, and then you fill it all the way up with water, and you get 1 tablespoon of dishwashing detergent and mix it in. Then you put the lid on the jar and then shake it up really vigorously for about 3 minutes, because you want all the dirt particles to separate. And when they separate, they'll separate and settle in layers. And you can measure pretty much what your soil makeup is. So to make a long story longer, I tested the manure, and then I also tested the soil that I'm going to reuse, just to see where both of them wind up at. So now what I have to do is blend the manure and the old soil that I'm going to amend, and then do another soil test and see where that winds up. And then from there, I'm probably going to have to amend some sand. Another thing that I started doing to get ready for the season was to harvest my worm castings. because those earthworm castings are going to be yet another component of that soil that I'm building. Just a few things that those castings are going to help with is, one is to take down the odor from the manure. The other thing is that fresh earthworm castings have a lot more, oh God, what would you call it? Earthworm larvae? So that's going to really help push up the earthworm population in that soil to feed on that manure. So both of those things are a positive thing for my soil. So I started popping a bunch of seeds this weekend also. I started with a jar of bag seeds that I had. Bag seeds are just seeds that I find in different flour that I get from different places, either from a dispensary or from my pot dealer or from, someone's home grow that they give me. Sometimes there's a seed in it. So bag seeds are just seeds that kind of come along for the ride. And I have a jar that I put them aside in. I don't really mark them as anything. It's just a jar with some random seeds in it. I refer to them as mystery plants. So I put all of those seeds in a cup of water to start germinating them. Now usually when I germinate, I'll put the seeds in a cup of water for 2 days. By the end of 2 days, a majority of them are going to have the tiniest of tap roots just barely showing. After that, I would put them in a wet paper towel and slide them into a Ziploc bag with a little bit of air in that bag to make it look like a pillow. And I'd leave them in there for 2 days. And after those 2 days, they would all have these nice long fuzzy tap roots. This season, I'm going to do it a little differently. Like I said earlier, I spoke to my buddy Derek, and he said what he's doing is he's just putting his seeds in a cup of water for a day and then putting them straight into the dirt, straight into his grow medium, whatever it is. So I figured, well, since Derek is doing it that way, I'm going to try it. But for me, I'm just going to put them in the water for 2 days. And then after that, I'm just going to go straight into soil. And my plan for these bag seeds is to get them growing in some solo cups to a nice, 5-6 inches tall maybe. And then I'm going to see if I can give them away to patients at one of the local dispensaries. I'm pretty sure patients still show up to dispensaries, right? But anyways, I'm hoping they do, and I want to see if I can just give them away to the patients, man, so they can grow their own. And I refer to these plants as mystery plants because, one, I don't know what they are as far as what strain they are. I mean, I'll be able to tell if they're an indica or a sativa by, just the leaf shape, but other than that, I'm not going to know. And I'm also probably not going to know the sex of them either when I give them away. So that's the plan for that set of seeds. But now, I want to talk about some seeds that I got from my buddy Lorax. So Lorax the breeder is going to be at the Science of Organic Regenerative Cannabis Cultivation Conference. That's happening March 27th, 28th, and 29th in Whitmore Lake, Michigan. And I got about 6 varieties of seeds from him, and they all look like some super fun flavors, man. Let's see, I've got the Afghan Durban. That one's going to be a lot of fun. I do like a good Durban. Oh, a good Durban poison's great. And the Afghan. Plus, I think these are going to grow really well in my area since I do have a really hot climate and low humidity in the growing season, summertime outdoors out here. That's going to be awesome. There's also a Mazari Sharif F2s. I don't know what those are. I got to ask him about those. And then I also got the Punjab cross with the Mac. Ooh, that looks fun. There's also a bulk diesel cross that I know nothing about. And then there's the Great Rift Valley again. That one sounds like it's really going to do good outdoors for me here. And last but not least is the Nepal Diesel Cross. And all of these lovely strains come from Uncle John's Farms Genetics. Again, if you're going to be in Michigan at the end of March, go to Whitmore Lake, man. Go to the conference. Check it out. Say hello to Lorax and check out everything that Uncle John's Farms has to offer. Now the question is really, which ones do I pop first? Okay, so it's going to be the Afghan Durban for sure, the Great Rift Valley. Oh man, where to start? Do I do the Nepal Diesel or the Punjab? Ooh, or the Sharif? Oh, I have too many decisions here. Alright, so I got to flip a coin between which one I want to do, the Nepal Diesel Cross or the Mazari Sharif. You know what? I think I'm going to go with the Nepal. Yeah. But I'll keep you posted. And those are just a couple of things that I'm doing just to get ready for the grow season coming up. What are you going to pop? What are you going to plant? Have you picked them out yet? Do you know what you're going to plant? Do you know what medium you're going to use? Well, you don't got a lot of time. Better figure it out, especially if you're growing outdoors. If you're growing indoors, you can make your decision whenever you want. But yeah, let me know what you're going to put in the dirt. All right, now let me get the seeds off the desk. And we can continue with the show. let's get to the strain of the week, and I'm going to give it up to the Granola Funk. Yes, I don't know if you noticed or not, but me and my buddy Omar were talking about it last week. If you've never had it, it is a very delicious flower. It's a hybrid split 50-50, which means it's an indica sativa. It's an even 50-50. That's what the internet says. The internet also says that it is a cross between the infamous forum cut of the Girl Scout cookies and the Wookie 15. Wow, so it's a cookie and a Wookie. Anyways, that's a bad joke. That's like a grandpa joke. But seriously, whoa, what's that? Is that a spider? Wow, it's a big old fucking spider. But seriously though, first of all, this flower was like super fluffy and supple, like soft and velvety. You could see the trichomes on it. It was a beautiful flower, man. And the smell was this like overripe fruit smell with a little bit like a fuely kind of hint at the end, you know? It was a little bit like when a peach is about to go bad, sweet, almost to the point of sour. It had that kind of smell to it. And then, like I said, at the end, it had this little fuely kind of gassy taste. And the taste was a trip because it was like this dirty vanilla taste. I mean, I don't know who grew it, but they did a great job on it, man. This stuff was so tasty and so great. And the Granola Funk is a bit of a heavy hitter, man. It came in at like 27% THC, and I felt it. I felt it like after the second hit, after about 10-15 minutes, I was like, wow. You know, it was super euphoric, super uplifting, but calming at the same time, you know, kind of like de-stressing, you know. Because as I felt myself get high, I also felt myself get really relaxed and everything, you know, all the kind of stress and tension melted away. That's what this was like. You know, it kept me alert, but it also let my mind kind of drift, if that makes sense. You know what I mean. I know you know what I mean, but that's what it was like. It was really great flower. But I do need to warn you, once I came down, oh man, I had the munchies so bad. I know some of you are thinking, well, doesn't all pot give you the munchies? No, all pot does not give me the munchies. There is some pot that has, I think it's the more lanolin, which is one of the terpenes. I think it's what gives lavender its smell. The more lanolin that a flower has, the more appetite suppressing it is. I believe I'm getting that right. I may be fucking that all up. But anyway, some terpenes will actually suppress your hunger. This one did not. This Granola Funk, oh man, like I was saying, made me just want to eat everything in sight. So just be aware of that. You know, if you get a hold of the Granola Funk and you're about to load yourself a bowl or smoke that joint, you know, keep your healthy snacks nearby. I say healthy snacks because it's really easy to like kill half a dozen donuts on this thing. I know it is. I bet it is. This is not a weed to go to work high with. Do not go to work high with this weed. You will look high. You will feel high. I don't care how much of a stoner you are. You are going to feel this fucking weed. Now, if you don't care about that and you still want to smoke this at work, all right, go ahead. Just let me know how it goes. But anyways, Granola Funk, check it out and get it if you see it. And that, my friends, is the strain of the week. Now let's move on to the report from the Cannabis front line. Now, in case you haven't noticed, this is an election year, which means that a lot of states are moving forward with cannabis acceptance laws. Now, I'm not going to refer to them as legalization, at least not until cannabis is treated the same way that alcohol is, in terms of everything, banking, advertising, everything, man. Let's just treat it with an even hand. But until then, to me, it's just cannabis acceptance, not so much legalization. But the thing I really wanted to remind you of is to go out and get registered to vote, and then in November, follow through and vote. I don't care who you're voting for. I don't care if you're voting for me or against me. Just get out there and be a part of the process. Now, with that said, let's move on to a couple of headlines that are out there. Now, this first one comes from the Marijuana Moment, and it was put together by Matt Saint-Sing. And it's titled, Lasers Can Tell Hemp and Marijuana Apart with 100% Accuracy, Scientists Reveal. In a study published last month in the journal RSC Advances, a team of researchers at Texas A&M University were able to determine whether plant material is hemp or marijuana with 100% accuracy by using a handheld laser device called a Raman spectrometer, or RS. We can speculate that RS allows us to predict the amount of THC in the analyzed sample without necessary oxidation of THCA to THC, they wrote. So in other words, these researchers at Texas A&M University are using this Raman spectrometer to tell the difference on site between hemp and cannabis, because this laser detects the amount of THCA, which is a precursor to THC, is what they were saying. So it's looking like, we're that much closer to getting a field test tool to test cannabis for hemp. Because that's one of the big issues in a lot of states, is that the fact that there's no cheap way or inexpensive way of testing between cannabis and hemp. Because you have to do a chemical test. You can't just look at it and say, yes, this is one or the other. No, because they both look, feel, and smell very, very similar, very alike. So that's pretty cool. I'd like to get my hands on one of these Raman spectrometers just to goof around with. The next story I want to talk about comes out of Kentucky. It's about how the hemp farmers down there are trying to get the government to change the THC threshold for hemp. They want it changed from 0.3% to 1%. And the reason for this is that it's not an easy thing to maintain your hemp crop below 0.3%, because if it's over, I think some states give you a leeway of up to 0.5, but other states, if it's anything over 0.3% THC, they make you destroy the whole crop. You can't sell that in the market. So these hemp farmers in Kentucky are really lobbying hard to get that threshold raised to 1%. Because if we raise that to 1%, that means that less crop has to be destroyed. More crop can make it into the system, and farmers are able to make that much more money from it. So I hope these hemp farmers have success at raising that threshold, because I think if they do, that would set precedent around the country. Now, I don't know how many other states actually allow a 1% THC threshold for hemp, but I figure the more states that do, the better, because that way when the next farm bill gets written, the definition of industrial hemp in America changes from 0.3% to 1%. And the last story I want to talk about, surprisingly, came from Yahoo Finance News. And the title of it is, Can Suck the THC Buzz Out of Pot Drinks. Where does this leave canopy growth? And this was written by Jeff Lagerquist. Man, I hope I got that right. It starts off, cannabis beverages and aluminum cans have a problematic relationship that could prove costly for licensed products with drink production lines built into the ubiquitous metal containers. The devil is in the molecular details. Scientists have determined that liners inside aluminum cans can cause cannabis drinks to lose their potency. That means by the time the pot drink is put in a can, shipped, stored in a warehouse, displayed in a store, and finally consumed, the buzz promised on the label may have diminished or disappeared. Can manufacturers add the liners to prevent drinks from taking on the metallic taste, to reduce corrosion of the can, and to improve the shelf stability? But when pot drinks are under pressure, the liner can attract tiny emulsified droplets of active cannabis ingredients like THC. Our theory is the cannabis material, the droplets, will stick to the liner and cling onto it. When you open the can and take a drink, it will lose its potency. Vertosa, founder and chief science officer of Harold Hahn, told Yahoo Finance Canada in an interview. Oils, cannabis or otherwise, does not mix with water. Nanoemulsions help solve that problem by breaking down oily compounds to a microscopic level so they can be suspended in the drink. However, pot drinks have yet to emerge as a major category, even though they've been available in the U.S. with legal recreational cannabis sales for some time. Hahn said the problem with aluminum cans draining the potency of the pot drinks first came to his attention early last year when Lagunitas, a craft beer subsidiary of Heineken, shifted its hi-fi hops cannabis drinks from cans to glass bottles. Hahn said it's difficult for can industry to alter linings to accommodate a relatively small cannabis drink category, and pot drink producers prefer cans over bottles due to lower costs. Okay, well then there's the problem, folks. So be really, really suspicious of those pot drinks that you get at the shops that are in aluminum cans, because they may not be potent as they say on the label or have any potency at all. Which now that makes me wonder, are we going to start to see all of these cannabis drinks in glass bottles? I mean, that seems like the obvious answer, because as it is now, aluminum cans are going to suck out the potency. And I don't know if I trust plastic bottles with cannabis oil in them and terpenes. I don't know if they're adding terpenes or not. I don't know. Who knows? But there you go. Don't buy any cannabis beverages in aluminum cans because you're being cheated, or the potency isn't what it's labeled as. Or I wonder, maybe they can figure out like how much of the potency is being leached out or being attached to the lining of the can, and then just up the potency when they fill it. Maybe that's the answer. I think I may have answered it. But anyways, folks, that is the report from the Cannabis Frontline. And as always, there are links in the show notes to all of those articles. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I invited Derek Gilman to come back on the show. I had him on just over a year ago. He was cool enough to come back on, and, we talked about a lot of different things. And he was also cool enough to share some of his frankincense bud with me. He rolled a joint of that frankincense that he talked about. Holy cow, was that great. That dude can grow some flower. It had this little bit of spicy, like musky note to it. Gave the flavor of like a peppery, like the beta-caryophyllene. And the high was this really awesome, like low or almost no anxiety high. It was just really uplifting, really euphoric. I do got to tell you though, after we smoked that joint, I was lit like a Christmas tree. But it was a great high. So hang tight. I'm going to play a little bit of music and then I'll put that on. Well, brothers and sisters, check it out. Once again, I've got with me my buddy Derek Gilman, director of content out at Greenflower Media. Is that your title now, or what's?
Yeah, I've had several titles since being here at Greenflower Media. I am currently a host and content producer, and I've been working on a secret project for the last few months. Something we'll be launching later in 2020.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe we'll get some hints out of you a little throughout this conversation.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, so thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. And so last year, are you amending your soil this year? Are you growing this coming season?
I am growing this coming season. I have not yet amended my soil.
Do you plan on it? Because I know last year you were just leaning real heavy on your on the microbes.
Exactly. Last year I did practically zero fertilizing, and definitely I did not amend the soil at all prior to the growing season. And I did focus exclusively on the soil biology, mostly through adding some compost onto my soil to kind of kickstart the life cycle before I planted into my containers, and then ultimately following up with compost teas, actively aerated compost teas on a regular basis.
Hey, so when you make teas, do you get the microscope out and at least once in a while?
So I used to make my own teas, and the more I researched actively aerated compost tea, I began to discover and realize that without a microscope and without some level of formal training to identify the microbes in there, that it was really a crapshoot on what you could be brewing in your tea that could have been beneficial and maybe not so much. And so I have, through my connections here at Greenflower, got to meet a wonderful soil biologist and a doctor of microbiology. His name is David White, Dr. David White, and he runs the Center for Regenerative Agriculture out of Ojai. And he now is my brewmaster. He brews my teas for me.
Wow, really?
I leave it to him. And then, yes, he does bring the microscope over, and we identify what's going on in there.
So is he brewing like a big vat for a lot of people, or is this just something, he's slipping you gallons at the door?
He does batches. He does batches for private clients, both commercial and residential clients. And, he brews up a batch for me the night before, and then morning of application, he shows up with a truck full of about a dozen 5-gallon buckets filled up with the compost tea that we trudge back to my garden.
So then you are going to amend your soil this year? Is that what you're thinking?
What I plan to do this year is I'm going to add some some fish carcass. I have a buddy.
Actual fish carcass? Like you're going to put the...
Like ocean fish.
Yeah.
The leftovers after my buddy has, filleted out whatever he wants to eat off of it. He brings the rest over, the heads, the tails, the bones, the fish guts.
I know quite a few people who do that, like the way Native Americans used to, man. Just bury the fish with it.
Exactly. So I'm gonna stick some fish in the soil this year.
That should be a really good soil builder, a way to really build that soil up. Wow.
Yeah,
right on.
And that also it works with the biology because it takes the biology to break that stuff down, and it provides the food source.
It's the soil food web, man.
Bingo.
That's the complete circle right there. So have you planned out? Do you know what you're going to grow next year, this coming season?
My lineup? Yeah. I have 5 of the 6 varieties that I'm going to cultivate figured out so far. A few of which are some cultivars that I've developed over the last few seasons. I have one that I call citronella. I have another one that's called frankincense. I have a pina, which is a Mean Gene variety out of NorCal.
Okay.
And I also got Mean Gene's Cherry West. I got a hold of some of those seeds a few months ago.
A couple of ones you said you're going to grow are your own, something you came up with.
Yeah.
Is that something that have you grown it before? Is this your first seed they're going to grow those? I'm just wondering, like, how do they do up in Ojai? Because I know, I live in Ojai. It's hot and dry. And I was wondering if you had, like, started growing a strain that's specific for your terroir, your area.
Yeah. When I do my breeding, I try to identify parental stock that is performing well in our environment in Ojai, in our terroir. And beyond the plants that are performing well, I start to identify aroma, terpene profiles that I find attractive or perhaps complementary in the parental stock, and look to make combinations of those.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. It's always good to just also, try to see what you can pull out, really, what you can come up with.
And to answer your question, so I grew out 2 of these last year. That frankincense and citronella I grew out last season for the first time. It came out absolutely spectacular.
Nice.
And so I'll be following up and bringing them back this year.
When you're popping seeds, how do you do it? How do you do it? Did I already ask you this last time?
How do I germinate?
Yeah.
So you may have asked me last time, and I may have given a different response last time. So I'm going to tell you how I'm doing it now.
Yeah, let's see how you're doing it now, and then we'll compare.
Sure. For many seasons, I did the paper towel technique. Moist paper towel,
right.
Seeds, folded up into there, and then would put that paper towel into a little Ziploc baggie, that served as like a greenhouse to kind of keep that paper towel moist.
It's a good technique. You get a nice long taproot that way.
It is a great technique. However, I've had a little more success this past season. What I did is I soaked the seeds overnight. Not a full 24 hours, just the night before I go to bed, I pop the seeds into some pure water. And then the next morning, late morning, I put them into little containers directly into the soil.
Yeah, I do both of those. I'll soak them for a day, and then I'll put them in the paper towel in a bag for a day. And but there's a lot more chance the taproot's a lot longer. Then there's a whole bunch of trauma that goes on because I don't baby the seeds very well. I mean, I'll get the tweezers out, but trying to put them in there and fish them out, so I'm like, fuck, just put it in there already. Just go.
It's tricky.
So
and they could get some sort of shock or trauma, as you mentioned.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that could just delay that process. As quickly as that taproot may have shot out of that seed, in that paper towel, something happens once it gets disturbed, put into the soil. It kind of has to recover a little bit. And I found things just did wonderfully well with just the soak and right into the right soil.
Do you go into the soil into like a solo cup or straight into the pot that you're going to just grow it out in?
I do it in the small cups. And I use like a seedling starter mix, not really like a pure soil.
Sure.
Okay. And then, because I need to sex them since I'm starting from seed and I don't use feminized seeds. I need to keep little containers that ultimately go to 5-gallon containers where I'm able to get them to a sexual maturity.
So when do you start noticing sex?
From around the 5th node onward, and it could be cultivar specific. Some are a little more stubborn than others to lift their skirts, so to speak.
Well, okay. So the 5th node, that's in veg. What are we talking about? What, like 5 weeks?
More or less.
More or less?
Yeah, more or less about 5 weeks. And again, some are a bit more stubborn, or sometimes those pre-flowers aren't as
pronounced
as you'd like them to be. Exactly. There can be just a little.
Yeah, you look. Some of them you're looking at them like, could be. Keeping an eye on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Hey, have you ever grown any autoflowers yet?
I have not grown autoflowers. I am not a fan of autoflowers or feminized seeds for that matter either.
So what bugs you about autoflowers? We're going to take this in order.
Yeah, autoflowers. It just doesn't seem natural to me. And growing outdoors, I mean, the sun is regulating the light cycle as it has for millennia that these plants evolved under. Okay, that's the signal, is the sun. And I'm looking to maximize the genetic potential of the plants. I don't want something to get to a certain size and decide it's time for it to start moving on to the next cycle.
Yeah, because they're calendar specific. They're not photo or light specific. So yeah, you've got, I don't know, what is 60, 70 days. That's it.
Yeah.
Huh. So what is it about feminized? Is it just the whole unnatural way they're coming about, or?
I don't like the way the plants have to be manipulated, typically chemically manipulated, in order to get a female plant to produce a male flower. Because that's how it works, is they force a female plant to make a male flower. They collect the pollen from that flower, and that the pollen from that flower from the female plant only produces female seeds going forward. And they'll use colloidal silver. They'll use a couple different chemicals that they can use to make the plant do that. I just have I have too much respect for this plant and what it does for me, the people I care about, and I just like to treat that plant with respect. As humans, we think we know a whole lot about the way the universe works and the way life works.
Yeah, we like to think that. Yeah, we we think we know things.
Yeah, but plant intelligence, is it a thing? Likely.
I mean, it's possible. Look at the rhizosphere, man. I mean, look at the rhizosphere, just what we found out in the last couple of years in some of the old growth forests. Man, that rhizosphere spreads for miles underground.
Those trees are communicating with one another. They are sharing nutrients amongst one another. They are giving warning signals if for impending diseases or pests with one another.
Yeah.
The older trees protect the younger trees so that they could grow at the proper rates. And so, there's a lot that we're just beginning to learn. And I'd rather err on the side of caution with this magical plant and not treat it poorly.
The thing about autos and feminized for me, I mean, I don't see myself growing a lot of it. Like that's going to be my grow up, just what I'm cultivating for myself. I mean, I will more than likely this season probably put an auto in the ground somewhere, just to kind of forget about it and keep an eye on it at the same time. But yeah, what bugs me mostly about autos is you can't clone them. There's no, like you said, once they're going, if you take a cut and try to clone that, it's going to root, but it's also going to flower at the same time. There's no stopping it.
You know how they make the autoflowers?
Well, yeah, it's a mix of, originally the mix of what, the ruderalis.
Bingo.
It's a ruderalis. What was the first one? I think the lowrider, which, I mean, the ruderalis, it's all, the only reason they have it is exactly for that reason. It's just for the timing. Because
it's not known for its quality, is it?
No, absolutely not.
Have you ever heard anyone say, hey, the best smoke I ever had
was an autoflower? No, not yet.
No, not yet.
I mean, not the best. I mean, they're, not to take anything away from some of the breeders out there. There's a lot of people doing some good work breeding.
Sure.
But to bring that up to the same kind of standards as a photo period plant, it's just taking them a while, for sure. That's one thing I like about this industry as far as a lot of people are out there just, let's see how we can come up with a different variety, which is great. You know, there are more varieties of cannabis than there are dogs. But are they all quality? That's the question, though, right? What's the quality?
There's a lot of pollen chuckers out there.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of pollen chuckers, man. You know, but I wanted to talk to you specifically about something, mostly about craft growers or small farm growers, cultivators, because, you know, it's 4 years into legalization here in California as far as recreational legal. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when it went rec, everybody in 2016, and, you know, a lot of us were imagining, oh man, it's everyone's going to be on Easy Street that can cultivate, you know, legally. It's going to be great. You know, here we are 4 years later, and a lot of these craft growers, a lot of these small farms, they're still struggling.
The business model changed, the legal landscape changed, and effectively what happened was a lot of these small craft cultivators were members of local co-ops, co-op dispensaries, where they could, as a member of that co-op, sell their excess medicine or get reimbursed for their excess medicine, and again, be able to move it through the dispensaries. And what happened after, what was that prop that came through? Was it 64?
64? Yeah, 64.
Okay. That said, just the laws changed.
Yeah, I think it was 64 or 215. One of those two, man.
Well, 215 was the first one.
Okay, then it was 64.
So under 215, the structure was, if you were a member of a legally operating co-op, that you could provide the medicine to them. After 64 came, again, the licensing structure changed, the legal landscape changed, and effectively you needed a commercial cultivation license in order to sell your cannabis to a dispensary. Some of the small craft cultivators started jumping one successive hurdle after the next in order to get those licenses. The vast majority did not. The ones that went through that process soon discovered that the licensing was going to be a treacherous gauntlet to go through.
And an expensive one, too.
An expensive one. They realized, they were told that, the well that they had been using was no longer a viable water source, that they would need to put in a rain catchment pond, is just an example. I know that this happened to a cultivator, and it's a $50,000 pond they had to put in.
And were they, do you know if they were cultivating during medical? Were they medical growers?
Absolutely. They were medical growers.
And there was no problem with the water source when they were growing medical.
Exactly.
So now, just a little history. Back before 2016, you were a medical cultivator growing for patients, right?
Correct. Yeah. I was a member of a local dispensary in Ojai, local co-op, and the excess medicine that I had. You were able to
sell. I don't know what the structure was there. Sell to them, or
get reimbursed for my costs effectively.
And 2016 came around, we all got real happy, voted for it, and California reinvented the wheel.
That is what happened. And so I can no longer, provide my medicine to this co-op that I've been a member of for a decade now. Why haven't I gotten a commercial cultivation license? Well, the county that we're in, County of Ventura, has decided that there is no commercial cultivation allowed. The county has not drafted an ordinance to allow commercial cultivation, nor have any of the local municipalities within the county, the cities. Okay, there's a couple of cities that have stepped forward and said, yes, we're going to allow dispensaries here. Ojai recently, I understand, issued a license for manufacturing, which is going to allow someone to process.
Correct, yeah.
But no cultivation in this county. No cannabis cultivation. So, even if you wanted to, you couldn't get
at least no commercial. I mean, you can grow your 6 plants indoors.
Yes, you can be a home cultivator for your own personal
But needs. Any excess, you still you can gift it to someone, but that's about it. You're not making any money off of it or getting reimbursed for your cost anyways.
Yeah. The irony of all this, Alex, one county north of us, Santa Barbara, has issued more commercial cultivation licenses than any other county in the state.
That's an amazing statistic. I know that. It was surprising when I read it because, you live in California. Everybody assumes North County's Humboldt, the Emerald Triangle, all those places would have had a lot more. That's, and when I read that, I was like, that can't be. That's fucking marketing. That can't be right. And Santa Barbara County has more legal, recreational grow operations, cultivations than anywhere in the state, man. Which trips everybody out because it's not like Santa Barbara's known for growing cannabis, or at least, it's not known for that.
They weren't known for it. However, they did have a commercial cultivation component, specifically in the city of Carpinteria. For many decades, they were commercially cultivating cut flowers.
Oh, yeah. They
were ornamental flowers.
Yeah, they were one of the last actual pockets of the cut flower business in America.
Exactly. And then I believe it was Colombia or Brazil came online.
Yeah, and all the cut flowers as of, I don't know, man, I want to say like the late 90s, a lot of that industry, roses, a lot of that just went down south to these equatorial places where it's not just, while it is about the growing season, it's also about the labor cost. It's still an issue. I mean, even if you have immigrants working in these greenhouses from flowers, there's still a difference in labor, though.
So here you had this, the city of Carpinteria with all their greenhouses, all the infrastructure in place, and they were all shut down. There was nothing going on in there. The jobs had gone away. The greenhouses were sitting dormant. And fortunately, the light bulb went on, and they realized that they had the infrastructure in place and the labor force in place that needed the jobs to get and to allow cannabis in.
And, and that's a little bit of the issue up there in Carpinteria, because where the county allowed the grows to happen was literally on the city limits of Carpinteria. So the residents of Carpinteria had no say in what went on. Mm-hmm. That's why everybody was so upset when that first season, when they grew and there was this just beautiful aroma driving through Carpinteria. I say beautiful, people who live there fucking hated it. But I work out there and I love driving through it. Like, ooh, I love driving through Carpinteria, man. But that was their big issue, man.
I bet the schools don't mind the tax income that they're getting.
Well, the schools, it was a trip. It was kind of a double-edged sword, because literally the high school was surrounded by greenhouses, because the high school lies just on that county line. Mm-hmm. So there were greenhouses up until they put I think it was 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet of an easement. You had to be away from any kind of, school or where, kids congregate. But that first season, people were just fucking mad. And rightfully so. You're talking about a very quiet beach community that all of a sudden just had this aroma going through it that they were like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. And it made me wonder a lot about, didn't anybody in the county go to a commercial grow before they said, yeah, let them do it? All you had, Colorado was already online. You could have gone and just say, well, this is going to be an issue.
The aroma is not a toxic aroma.
No, not at all.
To most people don't find it to be an unpleasant aroma. And it's certainly not the same as living next to the sriracha factory.
No. And they allowed the sriracha factory to go forward because sriracha said, you know what, we'll fucking leave.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember they were like, wait, why are they complaining now? That factory's been there for like 20 years.
Everyone just needs to keep life in perspective. Understand the difference between inconveniences and true problems.
Well, you don't hear this kind of pushback like down in Oxnard next to the mushroom fields. You drive through there. Fucking, you gotta be kidding me, man.
Once cannabis gets recognized as an agricultural crop, it will then have the same protections that agricultural crops have. So effectively, they can't complain about the mushroom place because there's laws that protect that.
Yeah.
Okay, because we need the mushroom compost and they got to go somewhere. And it's the same thing with all agricultural crops. There's people who live next to onion fields and they leave. They take 20%, 15% of those, and they just let them rot in the fields and turn them over. And if you've ever been around that, that's tough to stomach.
Well, that same issue as far as the odor control came up a few weeks ago. Oh God, I want to say Santa Paula, where they have all those open hemp fields. I don't know if you've ever driven down the 126. I mean, up until like a few months ago, maybe about 6 months ago, I'd never seen. The only hemp I was familiar with was fiber hemp, rope hemp, because that's the only thing I'd seen growing up when I was growing up in Mexico. That's what I was familiar with. That's when people would say, "Oh yeah, we're growing hemp for CBD."
It's all these bare stalks, right?
Yeah,
next
I'm all
to
like,
each other.
"Fuck, man, you guys need a lot because that stuff's like bamboo." And it wasn't until recently I had seen, or 6 months ago, I was taken out to one of these fields and say, "Yeah, this is all hemp. This isn't." And I couldn't tell from sight or smell the difference. Still, I mean, there were a lot of stuff they were growing that was nice, felt gooey and real resiny and smelled great and looked awesome. But none of that shit's going to get you high. And so, getting back to my point, a couple of months ago, they had a city council meeting and, the residents there were just berating these farmers. Just people were going up there, they were crying, just like, "Oh my God, I can't believe the smell and this and that." And the farmers basically said, "Look, we understand you're upset, but, it's a commodity, it's a crop. It's hemp. It's not cannabis. We're sorry, we'll do the best we can and be the good neighbors, but we're not going to stop production." And it goes to your point that you were saying, once the drug form of cannabis is recognized that way, yeah, it's just, like you said, it's just going to be a commodity. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to get your thoughts, man, about something else that kind of bothers me that the small not the small farmer, but all cannabis labels or companies are kind of up against when it comes to dispensaries is slotting fees. I don't know if you've heard of slotting fees.
I don't know anything about no slotting fees.
No?
What are you talking about?
Okay. But I find it interesting about slotting fees that some places do charge farmers or, cultivators to be on the shelf, because you're basically, once again, charging the producer, from where I'm sitting anyways, for access to a market.
It's like what grocery stores do, for shelf placement. If you want it at a certain spot, at eye level.
Oh, sure.
Okay, that whole
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
Here's my thought on something like slotting fees, now that you've described it. It's just one more layer of somebody trying to slip in another fee that's ultimately just going to get passed on to the consumer.
It does.
And with a thriving, established black market that doesn't have all these layers of fees in it, and where the quality, for the most part, still resides, it becomes an easier decision for the consumer. And so the people, who the bureaucrats who really want to see cannabis succeed legally need to understand that they need to minimize the barriers to entry, like the licensing, the many layers of licensing that they got to go through, and start to minimize the layers of taxation. You could create a black market for tomatoes if you tax tomatoes the same way you're taxing cannabis today.
Oh, absolutely.
You can create a black market for anything.
I mean, we forget that. I think it was in the turn of the 19th century. Tomatoes were illegal in Russia. Okay. Tomatoes were illegal in Russia. There was a black market for tomatoes.
You're not going to get rid of the demand for cannabis.
No. It was never an access issue.
No.
It's never been an access issue here in California.
The black market doesn't even have to get established. It's been established. The black market for cannabis has been here for decades. And if you want to transition that market, you need to make it easy for the people who are operating in that market, and you need to make it easy for the consumers who are purchasing in that market.
So
it's not complicated.
One of the big reasons why I brought up slotting fees is because I wanted to use it as an example or use it to illustrate, because we do hear in the news about some independent cultivators who get caught also running a black market grow. And a lot of people who are outside of cannabis don't really understand, well, why would they do that? Why would they want to jeopardize so much or invest so much money into it? And it's because it's not easy. And now I'm not justifying anything, but we need to understand there are a lot of things wrong with the way California regulates the commercial industry, the cultivating industry, man.
It's a bit of a mess, Alex.
You
It's
know,
a bit of a mess right now.
it's,
I mean, there was 50. You know, the number I heard was there was 50,000, private cultivators in California leading up to, the passing of Prop 64, and less than 1%. I mean, it's just a handful have actually gone through the process to go and get legally licensed. Many have just stopped growing. There's a large percentage that are still operating in the black market. And so we kind of it's this weird transition period we're going through.
And even a lot of what we think are big cultivating, vertically integrated companies, a lot of them, are either barely making it as far as just breaking even, or they're losing money and they're just having investors prop them up, hoping that eventually the market will turn around.
Again, this isn't complicated. The everyone from the small boutique cultivator to the largest of them all, the MedMens of the world, everyone in the legal market is struggling for the reasons I mentioned. Okay, it's the bottom line is the quality flowers, the quality products are still in the black market because the quality producers are still in the black market. And until you can bring that quality over into the legal market, there's little incentive for the consumer to pay more for lesser quality.
Yeah, and
it's simple economics,
it is,
Alex.
It is. It's really easy. I get it. But. And I'm wanting to talk more about this, or why I'm talking about this is because we have other markets coming online throughout the United States.
Sure.
Michigan, Illinois is about to go through a whole bunch of growing pains. It's an election year. A whole bunch of states are all like, "Ooh, we're going to legalize cannabis." I was like, "Fuck, you guys, pay attention to what we did, and then don't do that." Or at least, because there are better models because it doesn't seem that complicated. You can have a very thriving, regulated market where everything gets tested, everybody feels safe, and people actually make money. Not just big industry or big investment, but even the craft growers. If you want to call them that, if that's the name we're going to now give them, is craft growers, because we do have, like you said, there are the big players out there, the MedMens, the Flow Cannas, but there's also these other smaller farms out there still just trying to fucking keep it together, man.
I know.
I know.
Yeah, it's a trip. So I'm going to transition a little bit because I'm curious what you think about CBD and about hemp, because it's, dude, this past year, it was everywhere. It was, wanting to be put in everything.
Yes, it is. And I suspect that trend will continue for the foreseeable future. And when it comes to hemp, hemp is going to be in everything eventually. The bottom line is any product that is currently produced out of forest material, produced from cotton, or produced from petroleum, could be replaced with hemp. That includes all plastics, oils, clothing, fibers, all of it. Hemp is much more renewable. It remediates the soil in which it's growing, meaning that it leaches out the toxic chemicals and heavy metals and such.
Yeah, people need to understand that hemp and cannabis are bioaccumulators.
They're bioaccumulators.
There's a reason why hemp is used still for cleaning up Superfund sites.
Yes.
So
that's the upsides to hemp. The flip side to that very same benefit of hemp being a bioaccumulator that way is the CBD that you mentioned. So now if you're somebody who takes CBD on a regular basis, is interested or curious about taking CBD, I would suggest that they take the time to investigate the source of the CBD that they intend to consume. Because if, in fact, as we know, hemp is a bioaccumulator and it is leaching these chemicals, these toxins, these heavy metals out of the soil, okay, and then if this is being concentrated down into an oil that you consume, I think you really need to be careful on exactly how and where that hemp was produced.
Yeah, you really do have to pay attention to the label, and even though price is a factor, it's a factor for a reason. The best kind of CBD oil, tincture, whatever I recommend people get is to buy it from a state that has a already legal market in place, because that means all the testing's already being done. And because, you can find CBD at the gas station, but it's going to be from China. And, classically, we know that there's a lot of heavy metals in the soil in China. There's a lot of pollution which rains down into the soil. Now, you take that with a plant like cannabis or like hemp, and it's going to absorb all that. And like you said, then you concentrate that down. And now, you're taking away anything that might be good in it. You need to pay attention to where it comes from, for sure.
Absolutely.
Getting back to the thing of cannabis shops, is I wonder sometimes is if we do wind up consolidating a lot of these big farms to where only just a few big cultivators are on the shelf, how do you think variety starts to suffer? Not so much quality, just the variety. I mean, if everybody's got, I don't know, Gorilla Glue on the shelf.
Yeah, it becomes a very boring market with a handful of producers producing the bulk of what's out there. The good news is I strongly believe that quality always rises to the top. I strongly believe that there is an enthusiast market that will always demand quality. I believe that as the cannabis market matures, as the legal consumer matures in their palate and what they're paying attention to in the experience, that the demand will shift for a higher quality product as well.
I hope. Well, yes, it will, definitely. I just hope that because right now the black market's the one stepping into that. Once again, just getting back to the black market, they're the one stepping into that role too.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, again, these smaller boutique cultivators out of the Emerald Triangle have been in the black market their whole lives.
And they've been just growing some fire the whole time.
Yeah. So, yeah, the quality is there. Most people who were consumers prior to the legal market were part of that black market, have a dealer or have somebody that they know to get it from. All those networks.
Absolutely. I mean, I still do. I've got, my pot guy.
Yeah, many of those networks are still in place. Again, until some of the quality starts to make it onto the shelves at a reasonable and competitive price, it shall remain.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so got one last question for you, Derek. Real just curious about something.
Yeah.
Have you practiced Mean Gene's technique of rolling with one hand?
No.
I saw that. I was like, how the fuck did he do that?
Yeah.
He like cups it, flips it over. I was like, I tried it. There was weed everywhere.
You saw our rolling and smoking like a connoisseur video on the Green Flower channel on YouTube, which has a whole bunch of great videos about cultivation, connoisseurship, and such. No, Mean Gene and I have very different techniques on rolling a joint. I have a more of a process, a methodology that I employ.
I've got a whole production. I need a magazine. The papers are out. Yeah, it's a process for me. Hey, actually, before we go, speaking of Green Flower, so you guys are coming out with a CBD program, or
we have a CBD certificate that we recently launched. That is great for health professionals, people considering investing in CBD, people who are looking into CBD as a wellness product or as a medicine. Our CBD certificate that we just came out with has some of the industry's top experts sharing their knowledge and expertise, sharing their direct firsthand experience with patients, and explaining how it works in your body and how to get the best benefits from it.
I know of a few doctors who have questions about CBD and cannabis in general. So that'd be a cool thing just for continuing education for doctors, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we get a lot of pushback from the doctors. So sometimes, not so much out here in California, maybe, but there's.
Well, the problem is nearly every doctor out there that went to medical school, there was no cannabis course or CBD course or endocannabinoid system course that they were able to take that equipped them with the knowledge and information in order to be an effective and reliable, guide for their patients. And so the ones that have been paying attention, the ones that truly do care about treating their patients and having all any and every available tool in their arsenal, are investigating CBD and cannabis and the benefits. And taking one of the courses at Green Flower is just a great way for them to get started.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So do me a favor before we leave. Can you let everybody know how to find Green Flower?
Yeah, www.green-flower.com is our direct website. Again, you can go to our channel on YouTube as well. It's just Green Flower, and just tons of content. Health, business, cultivation.
Yeah, there's a good video over there of cropping. That's pretty good.
And my favorite topic of all, to tell you the truth, Alex, connoisseurship. Just the tools and the techniques, the rituals, the methods of consuming cannabis.
Okay, so on that then, what's the most complicated way you've seen someone try and get high then? Because I know people like their gadgets.
I think the gravity bong is probably
oh yeah, the one that flips over like some jelly beans.
You cut out the bottom of a milk jug. You know, you ever seen that? You put a little tin foil over the cap to make it the bowl, and you pull this thing up and down, and all it does is it just draws the smoke into the container.
Yep.
And it's
you're wondering what everybody's doing in the bathtub. What the fuck you guys doing in the bathtub?
It's a big pain in the ass process, and there's really not a whole lot of upside to it as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, but I'll tell you what, Alex, I would love to discuss connoisseurship with you in detail.
Okay, let's hear it.
You should come back on a future occasion, and we could crawl into it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we will. We will absolutely do that. We'll make a whole show of it, man.
Yeah. I don't know how long your podcasts run, but once you get me started on this topic, it's a good hour in and to itself. So
okay, do we need props? Do we need props? Is there anything?
Props? Oh, yes. I will have a joint. And we will discuss how I rolled it, the papers I used, how it was ground. We'll discuss how to properly light a joint, to properly smoke a joint. I know that may sound funny.
So do you grind your weed or are you a cutter?
I do grind it. I have this stainless steel grinder that I use that has these really coarse teeth that provides a relatively coarse grind. And there's reasons why I prefer that.
Okay, well, next time. Yeah, for sure. We'll have you back, Derek.
Very cool.
Right on. Everybody hang tight. I'm going to play some music and we'll be back.
So I forget how mellow Derek is. I mean, that dude is super laid back, man. That's one of the reasons why I love talking to that guy, man. Again, I want to thank Derek Gilman for taking the time to talk to me, man. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, sir. And if you have a question or a comment about this episode, you can send me an email that is inmygrow@gmail.com. Or you can get a hold of me through social media on the Cannabis app or on Instagram @InMyGrowShow. Well, brothers and sisters, once again, that is the end of my notes, which means that is all I have to share with you today, and that is the end of the show. Now, as a reminder, if this episode has entertained you, enlightened you, or even given you a little escape from the day, go over to patreon.com/InMyGrowShow and leave a financial donation. Now, if you don't want to leave a donation over at Patreon, if you'd rather have something tangible, something you can hang on to, go over to inmygrow.com, click on the Support the Show tab, and order yourself a t-shirt. And another easy way you can help support the show financially is before you go over to Amazon, click on the Amazon link at the top of the show notes in this episode so they know that we sent you and the show gets a commission. And if you are a cannabis company that wants to advertise with our worldwide audience, again, send me an email that is inmygrow@gmail.com. Now, brothers and sisters, remember, if you can't support the show financially, don't worry about it. Here's how you can help. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Subscribe to the website, inmygrow.com. Then go over to YouTube, search for the In My Grow Show with Alex. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And then after you do all that subscribing, just tell 3 other people about the show. Really simple, really easy. Now, as always, I want to thank all the artists who let me use their music to put this show together. Well, all right, mi gente, my people, I'm going to get up out of here. Remember that I love you very much, and to always grow, learn, and teach.
Get